Independence Day. Thank you, sir.
I surely do.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we want to get to our next guest, Josh Archbault, and talk a little healthcare. Josh, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming back on. So, the big issue, especially last week, is healthcare. It seems to be at an impasse. Folks don't. You've got some Republicans, the White House, saying that they're close to an agreement. You have Senator Paul that's saying that there were nowhere close to an agreement. You have Senator Collins with her stance on Medicaid. You've got Senator Cruz and Senator Lee who have a dual plan where they want to set up a separate market for those with pre-existing conditions. Explain it all to us, Josh. What's going on?
How long do we have? No. I think where we are right now is it really depends on whether you're a glass half full or a glass half empty perspective on the world on the healthcare bill. My read on this, and in conversations I've been having with individuals, is they're just doing what they need to do to get 50 votes. This might take a little bit longer than predicted. I know Mitch McConnell originally wanted to vote before 4th of July break, but that just wasn't going to happen. Senators have very strong opinions, and they expect to be heard and to be addressed whenever they can be. So I think we're going to see a lot of shuffling, both publicly and behind closed doors, over the next week or two for them to try to address, throw a little bit of more money here, throw a little bit more money here. I mean, Mitch McConnell has about $200 billion to play with to try to get senators to vote for this. And I think it ultimately is going to come down to somewhat of the people you just mentioned, Senator Collins, Senator Cruz, and Senator Lee. Can you find some sort of way to thread the needle to get a couple of the moderates and a couple of the conservatives happy? And we'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out. And certainly the media is waiting outside the door trying to figure out where they're going to end up.
Exactly, because I know, I saw Senator Paul yesterday on the Sunday shows, and he is adamantly against using this savings money to try to buy off senators' votes. I think he called it a Christmas tree ornament of giveaways. I can see Senator Cruz and Lee kind of being in that same boat because they are strong fiscal conservatives. Do you still see a path forward even with those objections?
I do, and I think really what it comes down to for the more conservative members is two things. The first one is long-term reform. So one of the big changes in the Senate and the House Republican bill is changes to Medicaid, so a program that traditionally has been for low-income individuals, disabled individuals, which is really on an unsustainable path. If you look at 50 years out, what's going to really push us over the cliff from a federal budget perspective? It's Medicare and Medicaid. So we have to figure out a way as a country to get it on a sustainable path so that it's there for the truly needy. And I think both the House and the Senate are trying to meet that long-term goal. That would make the conservatives much happier. The second piece here is around premiums. One of the unfulfilled promises of Obamacare was that the president, as many of you all remember, said that health insurance premiums would on average go down $2,500. Well, that certainly has not been the case. And so for conservatives in particular, they want something to point to in the repeal and replace bill that they believe will lower premiums. And that's what they have to do. I think there are options on the table to make this happen. The problem is health insurance is extremely complicated. And when you press in one area, there's a reaction somewhere else in the insurance market. And so the question is, do we think our U.S. senators are able to figure out health insurance from the perspective of how do we deliver premium relief and not alienate the moderates and the conservatives at the same time? I think it's possible, but we'll have to wait and see over the next week or so.
Now, Republicans campaigned on a 100% repeal and replace of Obamacare. If you had to put a percentage on it, what percentage would you say this is of repeal and replace? How much are we going to get?
Well, I don't know if I want to put a percentage on it, but I will explain the process, which tells you exactly what's going to be left on the book.
Okay.
So they're doing this through something called budget reconciliation. It's actually how the Democrats eventually passed the funding for Obamacare. And there's some very, very strict rules that to go through the budget reconciliation process you have to follow. And some of them, just as an example, are it has to have a direct budgetary impact, whatever change that you are making. And it has to be relevant to the committee. It can't be unrelated to the reform effort. So that's where the sticking point is. There's only so much they can try to stick through that process. So as a result, a vast majority of the ACA or Obamacare is off limits. They can't address it through this process. Now, that doesn't mean they can't try to address it through regulations, through HHS. It doesn't mean that they can't try to address it through other additional future legislation. But their hands are somewhat tied in what they can do here. And the debate that you've been seeing around Medicaid and around insurance regulations are really the two big pieces that they can address. Just where you set the dial is where all the controversy is.
Now, I know that you're a policy guy more than a political guy, but the conservative voters were promised 100% repeal. If we get something passed from the House and the Senate, are Republican activists or the people that really wanted to see this go, are they going to be content with the final product?
That's a great question, honestly, and it's more than anything the optics of this. I think if you were to see a Senator Cruz or Senator Lee coming out saying, look, it's not perfect, but it's better than where we are now, I think conservative activists, generally speaking, would probably say, we're not 100% satisfied, but at least it's better. They go on. Now, if you see the conservatives really dig in their heels and say, as they have been expressing concerns, rightfully, this does not repeal every single provision of the ACA, then the bill won't pass to begin with. And so I think that's really the litmus test there on whether it's successful, whether those conservatives. And you saw an interesting split in the House when they voted on the bill there. You saw some individuals, congressmen who are maybe a little bit more Tea Party or liberty-minded in how they vote, maybe more libertarian. We actually saw some of those votes split, and they said exactly what I just said. All of them said, this isn't exactly what we wanted. However, some said, it's good enough for me to get it over the finish line and give my vote to get it out of the House because we need to do something, and this is better than the status quo. And you saw others say, I can't in good conscience vote for this. That's going to be a very interesting question long-term, whether conservative activists in certain states think that's satisfactory or not.
Now, are you aware of this? I know you probably are, of this study that came out last week. I think it was from the University of Virginia that said that Medicare and Medicaid and uninsured patients got worse care than insured patients, and it costs more. Are you aware of that survey that came out, or that thing?
Yeah, I've seen some of the work coming out of the University of Virginia. I think what's interesting is that these sorts of studies do raise some very important questions, especially around Medicaid. Is having a Medicaid card as good as being privately insured or uninsured? And there are legitimate questions. There's been another study that came out not that long ago saying that people on Medicaid receive about 20 cents worth of value for every dollar that's spent. That's a pretty terrible return on investment.
Yes.
So I think taxpayers are rightfully in a position to be asking, is there not a better way to be able to spend our taxpayer money and make sure that we're actually getting some value out of it for those that are covering? I think we've got some deep, hard problems in healthcare that we need to address, and this bill won't get at many of them, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that state leaders keep at this because they simply have to, given how much healthcare costs are going up.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I've lost my train of thought there, Liz, but I lost my train of thought. Josh, I appreciate your time. Thank you for enlightening us on this. If you had to, if you were a betting man, 50-50, what would you say what would you bet that we're going to get something passed?
Yeah, I'm putting my money on that they will get something passed. The Republicans have to have something, as you said, politically to point to say that they addressed the big problems that Obamacare has brought to the individual market in particular. They'll put it in conference committee, which is both House and Senate members, to work out the differences between the two bills, but they have to do this before they start to get on to tax reform and other issues that they promised on the campaign as well.
Josh, it's always good to talk to you, and I hope that you'll come back on again. You're very enlightening and very knowledgeable. Give us the website where they could reach, or give your email or website where they could get more information on your organization.
Sure, thefga.org.
Thank you, Josh. Have a great day. Happy Independence Day. And we'll be back. Please